Hello friends and welcome to the Southern Mountain Kitchen. Today we're going to make unstuffed bell pepper soup. So what you see on my counter is pretty much what we're going to use to make this, with the exception of when this is done, you have the option of adding on some cheese on top of this to give it an extra flavor, which I do, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And the fact that I have pepper onion blend in my measuring cup, which is going to go into this, which you could use actually onion and bell peppers of your choice. That's all up to you how you want to do it. However, right now what you need to do is cook up at least a cup of rice, because we're going to add rice to this one's done, and we're talking 1 cup cooked rice is what you're going to need in the end. Now, as you can see on my counter, I have ground beef going into this. This was my choice. If you don't want to use the ground beef, you could actually use like some hot sausage that's cut up, or a combination of hot sausage and ground beef. I'm just using the ground beef because that's basically my choice of what I want to do with it. You really don't have to do it that way. I like giving you options, so that way it's more to your flavor of what you're going to end up with in the end. So let's get started, and we're going to start with a large pot, which we're putting the pound of ground beef into. Or if you wanted to do it another way, like I said, you could use some of the hot sausage mixed with ground beef, or just a pound of hot sausage. It's your choice. Personally, I don't know if I'd want the hot sausage in it, because it might actually give it really too much of a flavor. Because if you got that going against peppers and onions and all these other things, it might be a little strong. So going with a pound of ground beef on this, and what we're going to do is cook this until we totally break it up, because we want to get this cooked through, browned, broken into smaller bits, because remember, this is a soup. We don't need large pieces of ground beef. So we're going to put this on medium-high heat, and we're just going to cook this until it totally breaks up. So we're going to work this through. Get your temperature up as you're going here. If you don't already have a hot pot going, turn your temperature up and let it work its way through, and let it cook through. And then once we get it cooked, we want to make sure you don't have like a ton of oil in the bottom of your pan from where you cook this, because when you cook up ground beef, sometimes you get a lot of grease out of it. It all depends on how cheap the ground beef is. Ground beef is expensive these days, so it's like one of these, you use what you got, you know what I mean? If you have to get the cheap, you get the cheap. Just means you have to get the oil out later. So go ahead and keep mixing this up, moving it around to where you're breaking up the pieces and getting it browned. And this will take a few minutes, and then when you get it to this stage, make sure you just don't have a lot of oil in here, because if you had a lot of oil in it, it's going to float around in your soup in the end. And if you refrigerate this, then you're going to have like this layer of mess on top of it you have to get rid of when you go to heat it up again. But I do have to say, after I made this and I heated it up the next day, it had the best taste, because it has time for everything to marinate. So here we go. We are putting in my pepper onion blend, which this was basically maybe 2 1/4 cups of it. If you did not want to use this, you could actually buy bell peppers and put like 2 of them in, and like a half of a medium onion. And then just remember how much you have to pay for those bell peppers in the store, because the pepper onion blend bag is like $2 and some change. To buy bell peppers, oh my lord, I looked at them the other day, they were like maybe 3 or 4 in the pack, and they wanted over $5 for those. I was like, I don't think so. So I went ahead and I got my frozen bag, because you know what, that works better for me. So if you're using what I'm using, and it's the pepper onion blend, you put this in with your ground beef. If there are some larger pieces, just break them up as you get them in there. It's easy enough if you have a sturdy spatula just to break them as you go. And then we're going to leave this in the pan for about 4 minutes to cook, for one, if they're a little frozen, thaw them out, but 2, to start cooking them through, because we want to get them started to cook, so that way they soften up. Especially we want to do that with the onions and whatever. Just go ahead and work your way through this and keep cooking it for at least 4 minutes or so to get them cooked through. And that way at least you don't have frozen hard vegetables to deal with. So once you've gotten to the point where they've cooked through really decently, we're going to add in some minced garlic, and I'm using about 1.5 tablespoons worth. And once this is into your pan, you're going to want to work this into the ground beef and the peppers, and we're going to cook this for at least another minute or so, maybe 2 minutes, because what we want to do is really cook that flavor into the beef and all. And once it starts to cook, you're going to smell the garlic. because it'll actually start to radiate through. And this has the best smell anyway. When you get these peppers in here and you add that in, you know, it's such a great smell. So now we're going to add some seasoning. We are adding 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder. And once that's in, we're going to let it get into the pan, and then we're going to start mixing it up. And again, we're going to want to cook this for about a minute or so just to get that flavoring in. So stir it around, mix it up, make sure that it gets through everywhere, because we want all these flavors to mix together, because there's going to be so much in here to work with. It's going to taste so good. And then we are going to add in 1 can of fire roasted tomatoes. This is, I think, 14.5 ounces. And then we're going to add in another can of tomatoes, but these are diced tomatoes with Italian flavoring and herbs, and that is 14.5 ounces. And once they're in, you want to mix these up a bit, get them all through everything else. And then once they're in, we're going to cook this for about 5 minutes. So that way, all these flavors get to marry together and have such a great taste. Because you have so much going on here, this can't help but be good, because there's so many good flavors going together. It's just going to be such a wonderful mix of stuff. And like I said, you're going to let this go for 5 minutes, and it's going to simmer like you see here. And then once we get this completely mixed up, then we're going to add some chicken broth. So when you add your chicken broth to this, we're going to add at least 3.5 cups worth. And basically just pour it in there, get it into it, and then afterwards we are going to try to bring this up to a boil, and then we're going to put a lid on it and then reduce the heat and let it cook on like medium for 15 minutes. So that way everything here has a chance to cook up, be ready. It's just going to be the best tasting thing in the world, because all of these flavors, especially now that you've added chicken broth to it, it's just going to kick, but it needs some time to work together. And then after 15 minutes, you are going to take your lid off and look at it, stir it up a little bit, and then possibly at that point you're ready to bring in your rice. So the rice I had was sitting out since we started doing this, so it's a little bit sticking together, so I'm breaking it up with my fingers to put it in, and I'm literally putting right around a cup worth in there of cooked rice. And once this is in, we're going to stir this up and get the rice going through. And the good thing about the rice is once you get it broken up and then you get it in there and it gets wet, it'll start to separate. And that way it'll mix through everything else. And as you can see, this soup is already looking amazing. There are so many good things in here, and that's going to lead to such a great taste. So we're just going to like take that, set it to the side, get a bowl, put it on our counter. And then this is where we're going to come in with some dried parsley. We have some Parmesan cheese and some mozzarella cheese, and we're going to top what we made with this. So I'm ladling some of this into my bowl, which you see, decent bowl worth of it. Then we're going to take a little bit of the parsley, and we're going to just do this on one side of the bowl. Just put some over top of it, and then we're going to take Parmesan cheese and go onto the other side. And then I'm putting basically almost like 1/4 of a cup of mozzarella on the top of where I just put the Parmesan cheese. Now, as you're making more and more bowls, you're going to need more of each of these things, you know. So it's going to be your decision how much cheese you want, how much you want to put on as far as parsley or whatever is concerned. But once you get this on top, if you want to put this in the microwave for a second, you can melt that mozzarella down a little bit. Or if you let it sit over top of the hot soup, it's going to do it on its own. And it's just going to melt to the point where when you're spooning your soup out, you can get a little bit of the cheese in with it. And when it's done, it looks something like this. And I got to tell you, this is good. And I served it with some bread, and it was just the best thing in the world. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. And if you get a chance, check out my cookbooks, which are available in bookstores worldwide. The first is about everyday cooking. The second is all about baking. Have a great day.